transformative step in Kenya's long history and along the path of humanitarian leadership. And as we advance our capacity to deliver effective, responsive, and durable solutions to give relief and protect the dignity of refugees and asylum seekers. Kenya is a generous and hospitable society. As a tradition, we warmly welcome all visitors, understanding that they arrive in our land by different routes for different reasons. Solidarity with people fleeing their threats to life and freedom is a long-standing tradition that aligns with our society's obligation to receive all people with consideration and empathy. It is not a coincidence, therefore, that our nation hosts more than 800,000 forcibly displaced persons, mostly from East and the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region. Even as we observe with concern that global displacement of persons is approaching unprecedented levels, we also clearly appreciate that traditional humanitarian-only approaches are no longer sufficient. Crises have become more acute, protracted, complex, and dynamic. Resources, on the other hand, have declined, and the possibility of resettlement remains elusive. Under these challenging conditions, we must adopt a development-oriented model anchored in sustainability, inclusion, and resilience in order to continue to uphold the safety and dignity of displaced persons and to make them in some way to feel at home. Accordingly, the Shirika plan is our bold, homegrown solution which amplifies the African Union's call for African solutions not only to Africa's problems, but also global challenges as well. As was said here ably by the Minister and by the Deputy President, we can confidently say this is a Kenyan invention. We have been a host country for 30 plus years, and in the 30 years, we've come to understand this challenge in a better way. We've come to appreciate refugees better, and we have come to understand that the problem is not the refugee, the problem could be elsewhere. And therefore, this became acutely clear to me in 2016, I think, when I went to Kakuma for a development tour, then as Deputy President. And in the process of the meeting, and I was with the Member of Parliament, I think that time, Daniel Nanok. In the process of the meeting, there was a presentation by one of the students from the local school. And in the presentation, this pupil was asking me as Deputy President whether I could facilitate them to be a refugee. And the reason is that the school in the refugee camp was better than the school that this pupil was attending. And it came to me as a sharp realization that there was a problem. And it is then that we began as government of Kenya to rethink the relationship between refugees and the host communities. Because of the difference in terms of access to health, access to education, access to social services, the stark difference between the host communities and the refugees, there was an emerging tension between the host communities and the refugees. And therefore, it became necessary for us to rethink the way the host communities were relating to the refugees, and the need to harmonize that relationship by harmonizing the conditions that the refugees lived in with the conditions that the host communities were experiencing. And this plan is a response by the government of Kenya on how we refugees and the host communities into a win-win relationship, a one that benefits
ya matasi aringeto marufuku ni FK ndugu 90 uchongoni buenderete.
Na kufikia asubuhi maswali nimepigia tangu jana, masimu zimekuwa mingi. Kwangu nasema kwamba matasi kwetu sisi ana makosa na sisi kwa sababu amecheza game zake 3. Na hizo game 3 tulikuwa na Mozart Bet Cup na alitusaidia sana kwa sababu bila matasi game tungepoteza. Sisi tulienda sana penalties na matasi alitoa penalty mbili. Tukaja pia tukacheza na Summit hiyo Mozart Bet Cup. Matasi ndiye alikuwa mchezaji bora wakati hiyo, tena hiyo game tukashinda 1-0. Tukaja tukacheza na Talanta tukacheza nayo tukatoka 0-0, tukapatikana na shida. Sasa hivi mchezaji wa Homeboys, lakini mali makosa ilitokea sio kwetu.
Kindano binene tumrekerigi FK na Ramadhara United ibagodurana kwa Togen Mara Sugar dalika itari kuraya twakomenye momera manyuma ya kindano ino. Rugo timu ya Nairobi City Stars bagatembrana Kariobangi Sharks, Badari bagacheza na Orange Stars, Bidco United bari na Tusker FC, Jumapili Kakamega Homeboys bagakomana KCB, Shabana bari na Murang'a Seal, Neopost Rangers batembrana na Police FC. Game ya Mashemeji Derby igateka AFC Leopards na Gor Mahia. Kindano binene tukitagara mianga tumureke kuta final ya mbere FA irega Shedoru. Fulham ikawa Togen Crystal Palace, Brighton bakomana na Nottingham Forest, Jumapili Preston bagatembrana na Aston Villa, Neo Man City bakegwa geni Vitality Stadium bakethimana Kathorina Mbona Maulud. Kindano binene turekere na La Liga na Rarugori Sociedad bakawa Togen Valladolid, Espanyol batembrana na Athletic Madrid, Als bari na Rayo Vallecano, Neo Madrid bawa Togen Regime.
Refugees. This plan also sets out the government strategy to guide reform to policy and regulatory frameworks, including the Refugee Act of 2021, the adoption of the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework, the inclusion of refugees in county development plans, and their integration into public education, healthcare, and financial systems. It became obvious to us that containing refugees in camps, people who could
batembrana Athletic Madrid bakawa Togen Valladolid,
ideas, they are knowledgeable, people who could deploy their energy, expertise, and resource into the development of the country was not the best way to relate with the refugees. And therefore, it became necessary for us to rethink the place of refugees in our society and contextualize it with
Espanyol batembrana Athletic Madrid.
As I speak to you, more than 70,000 refugees are enrolled for universal health coverage under the social health insurance.
Nara Rugori Sociedad bakawa Togen Valladolid, Espanyol batembrana Athletic Madrid.
Population registration system. Partnerships such as International Finance Corporation, Kenya Commercial Bank, and Swedish International Development Agency guarantees funds are catalyzed their financial inclusion and engagement in
turekere na La Liga nara rugori Sociedad bakawa togen Valladolid als berna la Valenciano negori Madrid bawa togen regimes
system, and to thank the private sector, including our banks, for participating. Equally important, there is undeniable progress
bakawa togen Valladolid als berna la Valenciano negori Madrid
of the refugees' IDs in SIM card registration and banking, the development of refugees database, which is interoperable with government systems, and strengthening local governance through the elevation of the Dadaab and camps as communities into special governors from that region, and I must commend them and the leadership in those areas for making it possible for us to work as government in a manner that carries
bakawa togen Valladolid negori Madrid bawa togen regimes Jumapili Barcelona
county governments in those areas.
Togen Valladolid negori Madrid bawa togen regimes Jumapili Barcelona igakomana na Girona Athletic Club Barina Sasuna Valencia batembra na Mallorca Neo Getafe Bachora na Villarreal
to respond to some of the concerns
Barina Sasuna
have been
igakomana na Girona Athletic Club Barina Sasuna Valencia.
It was untenable to continue the relationship the way it was, and therefore this plan attempts to rethink, and we think this plan is
Athletic Club Barina Sasuna
once we roll out with the support of all the partners that have been working with us, including the international community.
Barcelona igakomana na Girona Valencia batembra na Mallorca Neo Getafe Bachora na Villarreal
from the UN community.
Gatongere ukere nkindano litora kombe toka madukira kana DJ break machadiri ngumata kirimo ekumbo. Bye bye.
With host communities and refugees, not just in Kenya, not just in the region, but also globally. This is not to say that we must make it, the norm for people to export others from their countries as refugees. I think that's not what we are saying. And in fact, as a country, we are deploying all the assets that we have to contain instability in different parts of our region. Just this morning, I have sent the Honorable Raila Odinga, our former Prime Minister, to South Sudan because there is a situation that could lead to export of more refugees from that country unless it is contained. We are engaged currently on the situation in DRC. We have a robust conversation on containing the situation in Sudan. So we are doing what we can as Kenya, working with partners and regional mechanisms to see to it that we contain situations that could lead to people seeking asylum and leaving their countries because of instability and other challenges that countries face. So we are actively making sure that we do what we can to make sure that we have less and less refugees and asylum seekers by participating in interventions that help countries manage their affairs better. I must also say that as champion of the Africa Union reform, of our Africa Union family, we are also looking at how we can better stabilize our region, how we can deploy resources in our continent to stabilize this continent, because unless we stabilize this continent, any meaningful activity, any progress is undermined, and we become a place of displaced people and refugees and asylum seekers. And we are currently looking at our peace and security architecture of the Africa Union so that we can find a link and connection to the international community. And I'm very happy that we've already made the first step, that Africa Union peace initiatives will now be funded as agreed by the UN by United Nations assessed contribution, making Africa Union interventions better resourced for us to take, better control of interventions in our region, rather than waiting long for some of the UN interventions to come into place. So, apart from thinking about the refugees we have and how we can integrate them into the development of our country, we are also actively working on how to make sure that we reduce on people seeking asylum where we can, and people being exported as refugees. As you can see, we are neither short of ideas, commitment, or willingness to do the work needed to actualize this critical vision. For this reason, the Shirika plan, whose development entailed extensive multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder consultations, led by county governments, and that is why they've already expressed themselves and some of the issues they raised, and also refugee-led organizations, UN agencies, development partners, and society, is a strategy to the contribution of a broad spectrum of actors is clear and bold, reflects our commitment to the global compact on refugees, as well as the constitutional mandate to observe and implement measures that not only fulfill but also expand inclusion, equity, equality, social justice.
Ni muga muthikire mwani michezo na karibu kire nkindano bieni eri tara kombe toka mathekera kana DJ break mchezo ile nguma takiri mwekumbo mukariri gitwa kirabu ya Kakamega Homeboyz Cleopas Chimanyula na thiete na mbere kuthetera goalkeeper Patrick Matasi akiwa nguya niri murume itache kubangana ngumi cha michezo kuomba kugitaru thikari kirabu ngeku Chimanyula atuteta miariano wa Real Matasi aringeto marufuku ni FK dugo 90 uchongoni buenderete
na kufikia asubuhi maswali yamepigwa tangu jana, masimu zimekuwa mingi. Kwangu nasema kwamba Matasi kwetu sisi ana makosa na sisi kwa sababu amecheza game zake 3. Na hizo game 3 tulikuwa na Mozart Bet Cup na alitusaidia sana kwa sababu bila yeye hiyo game tungepoteza, tulienda mpaka penalties na Matasi alitoa penalty 2. Tukaja pia tukacheza na Samuel Mozart Bet Mumias. Matasi ndiye alikuwa mchezaji bora wakati hiyo, tena hiyo game tukashinda 1. Tukaja tukacheza na Talanta tukacheza nayo tukatoka 0-0, tunapatikana na shida sasa hivi mchezaji wa Homeboyz, lakini mali na kosa
of Turkana and Garissa through their leadership present here for their enduring solidarity and pragmatic.
Sio kwetu
kindano bienine tumrekarigi FK nara Mathare United ibaguthurana kwa Taugen Mara Sugar ndarika itari kwa ya twakomenye mumera manyuma ya kindano ino rugo timu ya Nairobi City Stars bagate murana Kariobangi Sharks Badari bagacheza na Orange Stars Bidco United bari na Tusker FC Jumapili Kakamega Homeboyz bagakomana KCB Shabana bari na Murang'a Seal Neo Posta Rangers bate murana Police FC game ya Mashemeji Derby igatika AFC Leopards na Gor Mahia kindano bienine tugetagara mianga tumureke kuta final ya mbere FA ega Shedoru Fulham ikawa Taugen Crystal Palace Brighton bakomana na Nottingham Forest Jumapili Preston bagate murana na Aston Villa Neo Man City bakego geni Vitality Stadium bakedi manaka.
Thank you, Your Excellency. A round of applause for His Excellency one more time. With your permission, Your Excellency, I'll request that we hand over the Shirika plan to a few individuals. May I request that we take our seats, please? as we leave His Excellency on the podium. And first to receive a copy of the Shirika plan is His Excellency, the Deputy President. If we can have the PS
Dorina
over to
Kindano
His
Bienine
Excellency
Turekere
to
na La
hand over
Liga
a copy to the
Nara Rogori
Deputy
Sociedad
President.
Bakawa Togen Valladolid Negori Madrid
copy
Bawa
will be
Togen
handed over to the
Regins
CS
Madrid
Interior.
Barcelona Igakomana na Girona Valencia Batembora na Maloka Neo Getafe Bachora na Villarreal Gaton Kiri
Another
Ukere
copy
Kindano Litora
to
Kombeto
the
Komado
High
Kana
Commissioner,
DJ
UNHCR.
Brega Machete Nkuma Takirimo Ekumbo Bye bye.
Another copy to the chair donor group. A copy to the co-chair for the donor group. And one more copy to the Commissioner Refugee, and that is Mr. Burugu. We'll also have a copy each for the governors present. Governor Turkana and Governor Garissa. Your Excellency, sir, with your permission, after that we'll seek, we can have one for the PS. PS, Bellew is already there. So, and one for His Excellency. Your Excellency, before you leave, just a quick indulgence for a photo opportunity, kindly. So let's have His Excellency, the Deputy President, to join the President, together with the UNHCR High Commissioner. CS is present, the Chair, Refugee, and the two governors present, please. So the next vote, once that is done, we'll request that the CS's exit except the CS Interior, and we'll invite all ambassadors present. CS's, we may kindly retreat. All ambassadors, kindly, if we may now just present ourselves. And all ambassadors can exit. Then we'll the last exposure, Shirikisha Joint Secretariat. Shirika Joint Secretariat as a last photo. After which we'll then finish with the anthem as I guide you. Thank you, Your Excellency. And with that now, I'll request that we all be upstanding as we are going to finish with the national anthem. The national anthem.